Well, I went yesterday and got seals for these cylinders. They had everything except the damn V-packing. That's what this calls V-packing. I tried like hell to remember what this stuff or what these things were called in the last video, and I couldn't for the life of me remember it. So I just moved on because otherwise we'd have been standing there forever. And I was in the shower that night thinking about it because, you think about stupid shit in the shower, and it came to me, it's like, son of a bitch. So, yeah, that's a V-packing. And I'll explain a little bit of how that works when I go to put these things back together. But this video is going to take a couple days to put together because, obviously, I need those to put it back together, and I got to wait on them. She said probably Monday, but possibly earlier, so I don't know. But this is actually the side there, the one that leaked the worst, and it's because of that guy right there. That one's all schmucked up. But anyway, there's those. That's all the new shit, minus that, so. But anyway, I gotta get these things ready to go back together, so I'm gonna... Both rods are bent, so I gotta straighten them out, get the glands cleaned up, and get the ends of the tubes cleaned up, so shouldn't take very long, but that's going to be where we're going to start here, so. But the dog's barking at me, so give me a minute here. Okay, so first things first, you got to find out exactly where the rod's bent. And in a case where you don't have a clevis on the end, like if the clevis is threaded on and you take it off or whatever, however the case is, if you don't have some way to locate which way the rod was in the cylinder, you got to roll it on the bench and figure out where your high spot is. In this case, the rod was only going to be in the bucket one way because the grease zerk's got to face out and the eyelet is welded to the rod, which this one's actually been broken, fixed at some point. This rod's actually kind of been beat up, but Dad wants to make new rods for it at some point. And we were going to wait to rebuild these cylinders until that point happened, but this guy right here started leaking bad enough that I just said, fuck it, I'm going to rebuild them now so that it'll at least quit throwing away hydraulic oil and it quits leaving a mess all over the barn floor. But anyway, as you can see... Sorry. Nice view of the side of the bench. This guy's got a high spot right about... Center of it's right about here. So we take a Sharpie and we X where the center of that high spot is. That looks pretty good. Pretty far out on the rod, but in all reality, that damn bow is, yeah. No, I guess it is sort of focused down toward that end of the rod. It just looks like it's back further. So, now we got our mark, so we know where it hit it in the press. Alright, so, got this rod set up in V blocks. And then, just found some hunks of rubber to lay in there so I don't mar up the rod. Because believe it or not, cylinder rods aren't... They're case hardened, but they're not like super hard. They're basically, for all intents and purposes, they're like a hitch pin. They're really hard for a really thin layer on the outside for protection, and then they're still soft on the inside so that they can flex a little bit without breaking, because cylinder rods do flex fairly often. Obviously you don't want to bend them like this, but yeah. So there's not a whole lot of bend going on here, so basically we just got to sneak up on it easy. Cylinder rods do like to bend back, so less is more. And doing his hydraulics business, I've seen Dad do some crazy shit straightening out hydraulic cylinders. I remember one, we're getting close. I remember one he did, I can't remember if it was off of a backhoe or an excavator. I remember one, I honestly can't remember what the hell it was off of, but it was probably, and we're a little over right there, so maybe it'll spring back straight. He did one that was easily probably somewhere between a 45 and a 60-degree bend in it. Straighten that thing back out straight as an arrow. Okay. Here. Oh, we're pretty close, but it still needs another hit. Just a little bit. Stay. So, yeah, that's basically the process, so I'll get back with you here in a minute. Apparently this bench has got a little bit of a hump in it right here because it's high there and it's high there, and if you roll it, it's still high there and it's still high there. So, but if you lay a framing square on it, it's damn near dead nuts level, so it's definitely a damn sight better than it was before I started. And I think rolling it, it looks like there's a little bit of a bend right here, like you're literally right there in that little like 1-inch section that was probably caused whenever they did what they did to bust the eyelet off the end of it, and that's too short to ever get out of it, so you just have to live with it. But it's so close to the end, you'll never notice it anyhow in operation. So, there's that one done. And I'm going to do these things one at a time so I don't mix all the pieces parts up. So the next thing is going to be to clean the gland up. Alright, so all I'm really going for here is to get the rust and shit cleaned off from right around here. There's nothing here except for that snap ring groove, so if you can't do it, it doesn't really affect the cylinder. It just makes it going back together a whole lot easier if that's smooth. So... Sure sounds like I ain't got a lot of air though. Alright. Gave her a little drink of Marvel. Let's see if that helps any. Oh, a lot better. That's really all you gotta do. It's never gonna be perfect because it's obviously an old gland, but just that little bit right there makes these things 10 times easier to put back together. So, just kind of shiny. And then I don't know what the hell I know what the hell they hit it on. Back when we first got this loader, they never had bucket stops on it for the bucket to buck up against when you curl it all the way back. So it would just slam on the cylinders, which in my thought was that was kind of a piss poor design. But anyway, I put bucket stops on it so you actually had something to buck the bucket up against when it was curled all the way back. Well, before that, I think when the cylinders were retracted all the way and the bucket was curled up, when you were driving with it, I think the bucket would come back and slam on the cylinder, and that's what did that. So, I might buff that up with a grinder a little bit just to take the nicks off of it. that has zero effect on how the cylinder operates, but it kind of annoys me a little bit. Yeah. What we got? Oh, hell yeah. Already got the flapper wheel on it. That's more better. Then this thing's got pipe wrench marks in it too from taking it apart that I'll probably clean off once I get it back together, because you're going to put pipe wrench marks back in it when you put it back together. When they were new, they probably had a big strap wrench or a chain wrench they put on that thing to turn it so they didn't mark it up, but when it was new, it would also probably turn a hell of a lot easier. Well, there's a spot right here. There's a doink in it right there too. That don't look too bad. I wonder. Shit. Oh, nope. Hell yeah. I'm actually going to run a reamer in there, or not a hone in there real quick. Just to, because there's a little bit of, I don't know how well you can see it, there's a little bit of rust in there. So, that, get the drill. If you want to rebuild a cylinder, you could do it half-assed, but if you want it to last, it's usually about the details, just like just about anything else. That is just barely deep enough to get in there, but I think we got it. Oh, there we go. That's a lot better. And this you'll never get perfect because it's obviously going to be pitted. If it rusted like this, there's obviously going to be a little pitting. And the only way you're going to get the rust out of the pits is going to be to bore it. And if you bore it, you're all sorts of messed up. But that at least shined it up a little bit. So, on to the barrel. Alright. I looked in there with a flashlight. The bore is actually in pretty good shape, but I'm still going to run a hone in there all the way back at least once or twice just to make sure there's nothing in there. And then the end of it, right in here where the gland is, has got some rust, so I'm going to knock that out. But use a little bit of WD-40 for, I guess, cutting fluid, if you want to call it that. That's really not what it is. But and it's important to get that as much rust out of the end of it as you can, so that when you're putting the gland back in, or even the piston for that matter, you don't mess your seals up. because you can tear them on that rust. Oh yeah, there we go. Like I say, same thing. It'll never be perfect just because it's pitted where that rust was sitting, but the more you can do to help it, the better. That's not bad at all. And you gotta find a happy medium because you don't want to start taking too much meat out, because then that messes up the bore of your cylinder, and then that messes up how the seals work. And they doinked the bung on the end of the cylinder where the fitting goes onto the cylinder too. Well, they actually ovaled it a little bit. Got that one pretty good. As long as it seals up, we'll be alright. If you want to fix it right, you'd actually have to cut that thing off and weld the new one on, which might be what has to happen eventually. But I think for now we're good. If it wasn't leaking with that old ass hard O-ring that was in there, it ain't gonna leak with a new one. And gotta go clean it up in the solvent tank, but you can see it. That's what you end up with. Kind of shiny. Like I say, it'll never be perfect, but that's 10 times better than what it was. So that's that side. Now I just got to do, or that cylinder, and I just got to do the other one. Well, actually, I got to clean that up in solvent tank first, but yeah. Alright, now the one thing I'm going to put together tonight is I'm going to put the piston seals in, because these rings that actually do the sealing are incredible. They're hard, and you got to warm them up and stretch them out to get them to fit back over, and they don't shrink back right away, which makes it a kind of a fight to get them shoved back in the piston, or shoved them back in the tube. So if you got the time to assemble these ahead of time, it helps a lot on the reassembly if you put all this together and then put a hose clamp over it to collapse it back down to size. You can do it without doing that. It just, you're gonna fight it. So hold on a second. I forgot to grab the lube. And for anything assembling cylinders, putting motors together, this Lubriplate 105 is good shit. It's a lot easier to work with than like regular grease gun grease. And this stuff is actually supposed to be like engine assembly lube. Put this on your main bearings and cam bearings and all that stuff. It's enough to stick, but then once the stuff actually gets oil, it washes off really easy. But anyway, when you put these on, you can do it one of two ways. You could either like take it inside and put it in a cup of water and microwave it, and that'll soften them up, but I've had pretty good luck just running it like this through your fingers. Because they will expand a little bit on their own, but you gotta help them. But then when you get them on there, you end up with that. They're oversized. So you take yourself a hose clamp, and actually a piston ring compressor works better. It's what we normally use, but ours kind of broke and haven't got a new one yet. And you don't gotta go super tight. You just gotta snug it up a little bit to pull it down, and do that, and just let it sit, and it'll shrink that thing back down to the right size. You can't really overstretch them, they'll go back on their own, but this just helps them along. So and then as far as the glide band goes, those are just split rings. Those just snap over like that, and that's how a glide band goes on. Well, now we're back at a standstill because I need my damn V-packings. Which, speaking of those, like I say, I forgot what they were called in the last video because, and anybody that's ever made shop YouTube videos probably knows exactly what I'm talking about. You're trying to use your hands and pay attention to what you're doing and talk and get everything done at the same time, and sometimes your brain can't keep up with everything and you just have a brain fart on what shit's called, which is kind of a dangerous way to make videos, because the minute you mispronounce something or call something the wrong name or forget what something's called, my God, the ASE certified YouTube armchair mechanics just come out of the woodwork. And luckily they haven't showed back up yet since I've been back. Before, back in the day, I had a couple that liked to hang around and they were annoying as fuck. But long story short, when I make these videos, you get everything as it happens. I don't edit anything out. And in all reality, when I make these shop videos, I don't edit them at all. I literally just trim the fucking beginning of the video clip to take out the part where I turn on the damn camera and then put a transition in so it's not just a jump cut. And you get all my shop videos as they happen. So if you want something more refined than that, there's plenty of other farming channels and shop channels and whatnot that they are scripted and they think about what they're going to say before they're going to say it, or before they even make the video, and they're going to talk about A, B, C, D, and they're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's not how I do things. I think about stuff to talk about as I'm working on things, which is why I usually end up rambling on about stupid shit and then go off on a tangent and come back to the original story, and like what I'm doing right now. So yeah, if you can't handle armchair mechanics, don't do YouTube. Is the long story, or the short story out of the long story. But anyhow, now I just gotta wait on my V-packing to show up, which, like I say, is probably gonna be a few days out, but what's gonna be a few days for me is gonna be just a couple seconds for you, because thanks to the magic of video editing, you guys are gonna see it right about now.